Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 8 articles in this episode for you, and all 8 of the URLs are in the description of this video for your convenience. I have is off of Western Journalism, and it says, praises Americans or America's gift of freedom, and Trump reminded guests during a White House luncheon on Wednesday, and then the hamster jumps. Come on, hamster. Get with the program. Melania Trump reminded guests during a White House luncheon on Wednesday that the freedom Americans often take for granted is denied to many others around the world, including women like her who were born behind the Soviet Union's Iron Curtain. As an immigrant myself, having grown up in a community society, what in the world is wrong with me tonight? As an immigrant myself, having grown up in a communist society, too well of freedom and equal opportunity, ideals which this great nation was founded and has continued to strive toward throughout, said the First Lady, who was born in 1970, Soviet or Slovenia. That's what it is. But what then was the Soviet bloc nation of Yugoslavia. Lady received a standing ovation when she entered the room to celebrate International Women's Day. Vice President Mike Pence later joined the event. Trump told her audience that the privilege Americans enjoy are unique. There remains far more brutal and terrifying incarnations of actual gender persecution together, such as forced enslavement, sexual abuse, and absolute repression of far too many women and girls around the globe. We must remember these women in our daily prayers and use our combined resources to help free them from such unthinkable and inhumane circumstances, she said, as a way to improve the lives of women everywhere. And there's video on this if you want to pull it up and see that. Continue to firmly believe that education is the most powerful way to promote and ensure women's rights. Together, not only by striving for gender parity of education, but also by showing all children, and especially boys, that it is through empathy, respect, and kindness that we achieve our potential, she said. Together with the UN Women for Peace Association, we can educate the importance of tolerance and a society filled with inclusivity, regardless of race, gender, or culture, she added. To Karen Pence, the wife of Vice President, White House Counselor Kellyanne Conway, Education Secretary Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao, Senator Susan Collins, a Republican of Maine, Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican of West Virginia, and Ivanka Trump were among those present. Wednesday was marked by some outside the White House by a Day Without Women protests in which women were encouraged to avoid going to work at their importance. Secretary Sean Spicer was asked how that played out with women who worked at the White House. I am not aware that many that are not here, he said at Wednesday's press briefing. I think everyone that I'm aware of has shown up and is working really hard to advance the president's agenda to moving this country forward. Who have joined the president throughout government, I think, but obviously, as President stated today, we want to recognize the contributions that women make to our business, our families, to our economy, and to our society. It's a free country. People have the right to express themselves, Spicer added, but I think that on a daily basis, a year, but 365 days a year, appreciate the contributions that women make in all of those categories. A daily thing, or Yeah, that's what it says. So it shouldn't be a daily thing, and hopefully we that a little bit more be read it a daily thing. There you have. The next one I have is off of Liberty Riders. There we go. For the to play here. Yeah, let's see. This one says it's a coup. Hillary Clinton just released sick new video that Trump will hate. And there is video in this if you want to pull it up and look at that. Lord have mercy. Some people just don't understand that no means no. Hillary Clinton is released on the eve of the International Women's Day that will make America sick to their stomachs. As if we are not already tired of seeing her already. She's decided to take to Snapchat, of all places, to send an to send an order to her imaginary troops. Hillary gives very specific directions like stand up and resist, and another very clear message to fight against President Trump. Clinton thinks that anyone wants to see her lead a rebellion. She had her chance to win back in 2016 and failed miserably because of her own hubris. Maybe instead of filming Snapchat videos and hanging out with pop stars, she should have tried meeting and talking to real people from around the country like Donald Trump did. This isn't her first attempt at starting a fight in the last week either. She showed up to receive a Champion of Girls award to make another speeches. I'm sorry, where is Kellyanne Conway's award? Kellyanne was the first woman to ever run a successful U.S. presidential campaign and has had to deal with unprecedented amounts of liberal slut shaming ever since. These so-called feminists have no shame. And it says here, if you want to help shut down Hillary for good, then share this out and expose her for the fraud that she is. But that woman is downright delusional. The next one we have is off of BizPack Review. It says, Judge says no to emergency halt of new Trump travel ban. Kellyanne explains why. So far, so good. A U.S. federal court refused to apply the emergency restraining order from President Trump's immigration executive order to his newly modified travel ban. Seattle U.S. District Court Judge James Robart, who issued the temporary restraining order against Trump's initial order last month, refused a request on Friday to apply that order to the revised policy, according to Reuters. Robart, appointed in 2003 by former President George W. Bush, said lawyers from the states that opposed the order need to file more extensive court papers. Trump's January executive order on immigration, which temporarily halted citizens from seven Muslim majority countries from entering the U.S., was challenged by a group of states, including Washington and Minnesota. Robart had issued a temporary restraining order to halt implementation of the policy. The modified executive order, which will go into effect March the 16th, removed Iraq from the list of countries with temporary ban on travel and no longer indefinitely bars Syrian refugees. Washington state filed lawsuits to block the revised order, but top Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway said that was expected. Several states will challenge it legally, Conway said on Fox News Channel's The O'Reilly Factor on Friday. He was confident the president's new version of the executive order would pass legal muster. Trump's counselor pointed to Iraq's removal from the revised list as a great signal as to how other nations, which are known to harbor, train, or export terrorists, can be removed from the ban. Conway pointed out that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Secretary of Homeland Security John Kelly worked with Iraq over the last month to get better policies and vetting in place and get it removed from the list. We've made significant changes, and we know it will pass legal muster, she said. Saw BizPack Review, and this one says, hey, outraged Dems. Bill Clinton and Attorney General Janet Reno fired twice as many U.S. attorneys in one day as Sessions did. It's not rare for conservatives to see a double standard in how the media treats them versus liberals, but to see it in writing is striking. Fox News published an article Friday that showcased 4 instances where President Donald Trump or those in his administration was scorched by mainstream media for things liberals did before him. Dr. Ben Carson comparison of slaves to immigrants that former President Obama used years earlier was just one example of the outrageous hypocrisy. But another double standard reared its head even after the story was published. Liberals went insane on Friday when it was reported that Attorney General Jeff Sessions asked for the resignation of the 46 attorney generals still working who were appointed by former President Obama. And John Coyers tweets out here, disturbing that 46 U.S. attorneys asked to resign, need all U.S. attorneys' offices at full strength. Somebody else tweets, I'm very concerned about the effect of the firing of 46 U.S. attorneys on federal law enforcement. Well, that's Senator Dianne Feinstein tweeted that. And she also tweeted, the White House counsel told me there would be an orderly transition as has been done previously. Clearly, this is not the case. And the article says, perhaps the Democrats need a reminder of the fact that during the administration of President Bill Clinton and his Attorney General Janet Reno fired all 93 Republican Attorney Generals in a single day. Among them, an Attorney General named Jeff Sessions. Go figure. And there's a bunch of tweets here if you want to take a look at them. And there's the letter to Sessions that was signed by Janet Reno that says, President has asked me to request that United States attorneys immediately submit letters of resignation, as has been asked of all presidential appointees. Please address your letter to President Clinton and send it to Desta, assistant to the president and staff secretary, with a copy to me. As a United States attorney, you have played a vital role in the administration of justice in this country. Both the president and I appreciate your years of public service and wish you well in the future. I thank you for your cooperation. So that's where they ask everybody to step down. It's pretty much step down or be fired. I mean, there you go. There's a bunch more tweets after that if you want to pull it up and take a look at those. Next one here's off of BizPac, and it says, House Oversight Committee warns President Trump about deleting misspelled tweets. Let's tweet out a spelling mistake and recognize it right away, and who hasn't? The normal instinctual thing to do is to delete the original tweet and post a correct version. Making that kind of mistake doesn't necessarily mean one is stupid or uneducated, but it does mean we weren't careful, and it leaves the door open for people to make assumptions about us that we may not appreciate. Consider this tweet from Gateway pundit reporter Lucian Wintrich, who has enough to deal with without people assuming he can't spell. He sent out a tweet and says, John Decker assaulted me today at today's briefing. Fox News, this is behavior something you tolerate over there. He's sick. Says, being a regular Joe like the rest of us in a lot of ways, President Donald Trump has also made his share of Twitter mistakes. Okay, more than his fair share, but nonetheless, he's made mistakes and generally will try to correct them. And with no edit function on Twitter, the only way to correct something is to delete it and start over. But the problem for the president now is that he is president. Is that deleting misspelling tweets could be breaking the law. And the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has made a point of letting the president know in the form of a letter it sent on Wednesday to White House counsel John McGahn. The letter says that deleting tweets from either his official POTUS or Real Donald Trump accounts could be a violation of the President's Records Act, the Daily Mail has reported. The act specifies that all official correspondence be archived, and committee chairman Jason Chavez, Republican of Utah, and Democrat ranking member Elijah Cummings clearly believe the tweets are public records. Federal record keeping and government transparency laws such as Presidential Records Act ensure the official business of federal government is properly preserved and accessible to the American public, the letter states, according to the Daily Mail. The committee is also concerned that White House staff could be using encrypted messaging applications like Signal, Confide, and WhatsApp, which make it unlikely or impossible to preserve records. Generally, strong encryption is the by outside actors and can preserve the integrity of decision-making communications. The need for data security, however, does not justify circumventing requirements established by federal record-keeping and transparency laws, the letter continued. On Trump's Twitter use, the letter said, many of the messages sent from these accounts are likely to be presidential records and therefore must be preserved. It has been reported, however, that President Trump has deleted tweets, and if those tweets were not archived, it could pose a violation of the Presidential Records Act. Solution, according to the committee, is an auto-archiving system. The letter gives the administration a deadline of March 22nd to respond, turn in a copy of its policy on compliance with record-keeping acts, provide evidence of records compliance training received by White House staff, and also include a list of senior officials who have used alias email accounts for official business. The solution for President Trump? Perhaps a proofreader, or even being extra careful to review what he's written before he shoots out one of these classic 3 a.m. tweets. The next article I have is off of BizPac Review, and rips nationalism in first appearance since election, but Eric Bolling had Trump's back and is worried about something. You can bet it's probably a good thing. On Friday, the former president confirmed that indeed nationalism is a good thing when he decried it in a speech at a Brookings Institution event to honor the late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. His first public appearance since his wife lost the presidential election to Donald Trump, Clinton claimed that resurgent nationalism across the globe was taking us to the edge of destruction. People who claim to want the nation state are actually trying to have a pan-national movement to institutionalize separatism and division within borders all over the world, Clinton said. It's like we're all having an identity crisis at once, and the consequence of the economic and social changes that have occurred at the increasing rapid pace. Calling Rabin smart, careful, and a man who understood the insecurities which roil through every society at every time, and instead of being paralyzed by them, instead of being paralyzed by them or trying to take advantage of them, he tried to take account and bring them along. Clinton compared the former Israeli peacemaker to current nationalist movement he considers the opposite of the values Rabin stood for. Nationalism, Clinton said, is man's natural tendency. We are programmed biologically, instinctively, to prefer win-lose situations versus us versus them. This is a very old story, Clinton continued. It's as old as the Holy Land and much older, ever since the first people stood up on the East African savannah, ever since the first families and clans, ever since people encountered the other. It is a very old story, and it always comes down to two things. Are we going to live in an us and them world, or a world that we live in together? If we had Rabin's approach, as defined by Clinton, in every age and time, the challenges we face can be resolved in a way to keep us going forward instead of taking us to the edge of our destruction. Nice try, but no dice, Billy. In truth, nationalism is the antidote to the kryptonite to destructive, tyrannical, one-size-fits-all globalism that swallows individuals in favor of the elitist, totalitarian corporate state. On the 5 Friday, co-host Eric Bolling defended Trump from Clinton's implied criticism. We're not talking about Nazism here, which is another brand of tyranny, but rather economic nationalism. We're going to take care of this country first, Bolling said. And there's video in this if you want to pull it up and take a look at the videos. The next one I have is off BizPac Review. Al Franken has nerve to slam DeVos for school choice, but get a load of the fancy pants place his kids go to. Senator fought against President Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, in part because of her support for school choice voucher programs. The voucher programs allow middle and lower income children to be educated in private schools that are normally open to those who have the financial means to afford them. Franken said DeVos was fundamentally unqualified to lead the education department. And there's video in it if you want to take a look at it. In reality, most school vouchers don't cover the full cost of private school tuition, he argued, nor do they cover additional expenses like transportation, school uniforms, and other supplies, which means the vouchers don't create more choices for low-income families, the Minnesota senator continued. They simply subsidize existing choices for families who could already afford to pay for private school. But it's easy for Franken to say, as his children attend Dalton School, an expensive private school in New York City, according to the Daily Caller. Not only is Dalton expensive, at a yearly tuition of $44,640, it also wants to know what prestigious titles parents have on its application for admission. Titles like Prince, Princess, Mayor, Senator, according to the Caller. CNN's Anderson Cooper and actress Claire Danes are among Dalton's notable alumni. And Franken directly benefited from school choice when he was placed in a charter school as a kid, he told Harvard Magazine. Blake was a school chartered for Protestants, he said. In the 1950s, it started to lose the ability to get enough kids into top colleges. They needed kids who would score well, and they said Jews. Although few seemed surprised, folks were still angered by the information. And there's a bunch of tweets here if you want to read what everybody had to say about that. Tab is of BizPack Review. Is Chelsea Handler wonders how people will possibly have safe sex without Planned Parenthood funding. Comedian Chelsea Handler just wants to be clear. If the American Health Care Act is passed, or any other Republican health care bill that replaces a repealed Obamacare, Planned Parenthood will be defunded, making safe sex an option unavailable to millions. And she has a tweet she sent out here. It says, just so we're clear, Trump wants to repeal Obamacare and defund Planned Parenthood so millions have no tools to provide safe sex options. Wow. However, will people have safe sex without Planned Parenthood? And some people tweeted back and says, for loving science so much, progressives sure have a tough time understanding where babies come from. So it's the government's responsibility for people to have safe sex. Another one says, just so we're clear, there are many more options than the abortion mill. Have you ever heard of a drugstore? Another one says, did Trump get rid of condoms? Another one says, geez, are condoms that expensive? And why did Planned Parenthood fight to make over-the-counter birth controls available to the unwashed masses? Another one says here, wow, sounds like maybe Planned Parenthood shouldn't have worked to block the GOP bill to make birth control over the counter. Shame on them. Now, to be really clear, Planned Parenthood is about safe sex, like Playboy is about the stories. In other words, abortions are their game, and safe sex is what they do on the side to make polite society think they're doing something useful. Yes, the organization makes a lot of hay out of saying that only 3% of their business is abortion services, but the only way to make that statistic accurate is if you count an abortion, which costs around $1,500, the same as a pregnancy test, pap smear, or contraceptive service. When you figure up the cost of services, as any reasonable person would, abortions make up 94% of what Planned Parenthood does. But regardless, here's perhaps the biggest takeaway from this whole sordid affair. If you can't afford contraception, you shouldn't be having sex. Oh my goodness, that sounds so much like common sense. Wow. That's all I've got for you today. You should giggle all day long. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to enjoy the news. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so you can enjoy the entertainment with me. Have a great day.